Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Social Media Finance Show. I am very excited today to be joined with special guest, Mr. Paul Dex, who is a strategy executive at FIS. Welcome, Paul, to the Social Media Finance Show.
Thank you, James. Pleasure to be here.
Likewise. So the reason why I invited you on this show today, Paul, was because we've been working together for quite some time, and everyone on Social Tree is really impressed about everything you've been doing on LinkedIn. So I wanted to kind of pick your brains about your attitudes towards LinkedIn and how it relates to your job. Now, before we get into the meat topic, can you explain to the audience kind of what does your job entail? And so people can get a foundation as to where we go from there.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, my job is multifaceted, to be honest. I'm responsible for relationships with exchanges globally at a senior management level. I'm responsible for strategy within FIS, trading compliance within the trading suite, and also working with sales a lot to help generate leads in specific geographies. Also working with marketing to help create content, and also being informed of the competition and looking at our FIS trading suite, what other people are doing, and also working with potential technology partners of how we can reduce cost, improve time to market, etc. So it's kind of fairly broad, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a very broad remit, a very busy man. So how does that then relate? And again, when we think about LinkedIn at a high level, there's so many misconceptions about LinkedIn, social selling, and personal branding. What are your high level thoughts around LinkedIn, and why do you see it as an important part of your role?
If you think about it, I mean, I was sort of thinking about, if you like, the old days of making connections with people. You have, your Rolodex or your business cards, and you'd be trying to find one person that maybe you'd call and they'd move to another bank, or they'd move to another continent even. It used to take hours to track people down, particularly within sort of sales and business development area. And now with LinkedIn, you have 600 million professionals in one place. This isn't, it's not Facebook, it's not TikTok, it's not Instagram. These are professionals, 600 million in 200 countries. Now, I'm not suggesting that you're going to connect with 600 million, or the 600 million are relevant to what you do, but there's going to be a percentage in there that you have the ability to connect with and to meet that you maybe otherwise wouldn't, in a relatively straightforward way. So I look at it really as a huge database that's readily accessible. That's one of the advantages, if you like, of LinkedIn. And another one is, and I'll talk about this in a little while, but it's an amazing distribution channel made possible, again, globally, through their technology.
Yeah, so much to unpack there. And I think the idea, the analogy you had of the kind of database, and it's something I share as well. Like in your phone, you have the power, you have this incredible database. And another exciting thing is that it's constantly changing, updating. It's almost self-validating, which is really useful, because even a few years ago, legacy CRMs, you'd have these big databases. But as time goes on, the kind of corrosion of the data gets stronger and stronger and stronger.
Exactly.
And LinkedIn, you don't have that. And in the second point you made around the distribution factor, and I think that's where we want to kind of go down later on, but that's really all about content and all about conversations. And that's an area of a massive roadblock for people. But before we get into those two topics, did the pandemic kind of spur you to do this more seriously, or was this something which you'd always thought about doing and the pandemic just encouraged you to do it kind of quicker?
No, I would say that the pandemic was a huge influence on my, if you like, my change in attitude. I'd always been interested in LinkedIn, kind of used it a bit and used it as a bit of a database, but really it was a real catalyst, I think, for me,
Yeah.
change. Because I was looking at my diary of some of the travel that I was doing BC before COVID, before the pandemic. And I just wrote down sort of where I'd been, the year before, where I'd been engaging with clients and prospects, exchanges on a human level, face to face. And I'd been to Hong Kong, Singapore, Mexico, Paris, Brussels, Madrid, Manila, Kuala Lumpur. So all of this to seminars, conferences, face to face, one-on-ones, lunches, dinners, etc. And all of that just stopped overnight. So that door was firmly closed. So yeah, I then thought about, well, okay, how do I carry on engaging with these people, because I can't go and see them anymore.
Yeah.
And LinkedIn really seemed like the obvious choice, or really the only choice in many ways.
Yeah.
So it was a huge influence, and as I mentioned, because of the sort of distribution channel as well. So within the last year, I have posted 53 times, so just over once a week on LinkedIn. My network has grown by 1,000 a year over the last 2 years. So I am doing things very differently as a result of using LinkedIn. And within my role, I mentioned one of the responsibilities I have is global relationships with exchanges. So exchanges in Toronto, in Paris, in Hong Kong, etc. And enabling clients to know what they're doing. Suddenly that sort of all stopped, because we weren't going to listen to what exchanges might be saying in conferences. So I had the idea of, okay, let me interview a bunch of exchange leaders across the world about what they're doing, what their strategy is, what the new products are. And so we could get that message from Hong Kong or Singapore to the US, to Europe, from the US to Asia very, very easily, and distribute that and connect people as to what the exchange is doing in the rest of the world at a time when actually, we did feel very suddenly cut off. It's maybe the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
So that distribution channel has been absolutely fantastic.
And I think that the pandemic, definitely, there's a quote, which is kind of, I think it was the Microsoft CEO saying that the pandemic was 10 years of digital transformation in 5 months. I think it did spur people on. And I think, to your point around and particularly the exchange series, which you did, I think it was a great way to, I think not only obviously fill the gaps in terms of obviously not being able to meet them, but you also managed to kind of have more of a conversation with these exchange leaders, which you may not have had, or people may not have been privy to see in traditional formats. And I thought that was really nice. And there was a really nice piece around how the pandemic affected them and how it's changed them. And it was a really nice piece.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. Accessing CEOs and leaders is not easy for everyone, and it made them very accessible. And so, they were able to talk about what they were doing with the business, the challenges that they had, the new products that they were launching, what they were doing in their geographical location. But as you say, also actually being able to engage a human side as well, and how it was affecting them personally, and which people could obviously identify with too, which made it very accessible.
And on that kind of note, I mean, zooming in slightly now to your kind of world and capital market space, how do you think the industry is going to change? And again, focusing on this shift to more online, I suppose, social selling or conversation building, brand building, and all these things you spoke about. What do you think will be the lasting change in your space, which we're all going to be doing in 5 years' time? And I suppose, where do you see things going?
Yeah, this is a big, interesting question, James. I guess all I can do is speculate,
Yeah.
which I think everybody is doing. You know, wondering where it's going. And there was an article recently, and I saw today on LinkedIn, funnily enough, where Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates were talking about, you know, the metaverse, and we'll be doing everything remotely within the next 2 to 3 years, much quicker than we think. And far be it from me to disagree with those titans of media. However, you know, I think one of the things that I've been thinking about is over the last 2 years is you know, that value of human contact that we have all missed. We've all missed that, and you know, in whatever shape that comes in. But you know, we are, from an evolutionary point of view, we're hardwired to be in groups, to
Yeah.
be together. You know, it used to be for physical safety when we were running around and, you know, saber-toothed tigers and nasty things that wanted to eat us. But now it's more about emotional security, I would say.
Yeah.
So, you know, one of those things about, if you like, you know, shaking hands, human touch, that actually releases oxytocin from your brain. You know, and it's the oxytocin is known as the bonding hormone. And that also stimulates the release of dopamine and serotonin. So, you know, we can't lose sight of that actually.
Yeah.
And how important that is to us as human beings. And actually oxytocin has the effect of making us sort of more generous and more collaborative and sort of grateful. And, you know, these are important emotions when you're looking at teamwork, you're looking at sales, we're looking at trust. So, you know, we actually trust someone more when we've shaken their hand. Well, we can't do that with a VR headset on. We can't do that, you know, over the internet. So I would think that something will emerge that is some kind of hybrid model,
Yeah.
you know, but you do lose, you know, without that physical going to a conference, for example, you lose that ability to meet someone you didn't know, you know, in queuing up for coffee or at the bar or whatever. And I guess we need to think about, you know, what's the purpose of conferences? If it's to impart information, then we can do that quite successfully, you know, using the internet and using the technology that we have. I mean, that's relatively straightforward. If it's for all of the other physical parts, then that's much harder. You know, the building relationships, it is much harder. So I would say there would be some kind of hybrid model emerging. Will it emerge in 2 to 3 years? I'm not sure. Everyone seems pretty keen to get together at the moment. Will that wane in 2 to 3 years? But you know, I do think we can't lose sight of the sort of that physical side. And also, it's like being in a sales meeting. For example, if you're, you know, in a meeting, you can feel maybe, you know, the power struggle in the room. Who's really in charge? You know, sense those buying signals, feel that shift of energy in the room. That's much harder to do on screen, if you like. So it's complex. But yeah, I guess some kind of hybrid model will emerge eventually.
I think that's a sensible conclusion everyone has. And I think people have differing kind of preferences along the scale. And one of the points you made around intelligence sharing, and I think that's one of the things I've been kind of thinking about is it really extrapolating at the organizational level? What is the point of these events? What is the point? What is the value add for people? And I absolutely agree. And our events, we are basically now doing social media and finance, but we're just having a dinner. because that's what people want to do. The face-to-face, all about networking. So let's just
Yes.
cut out the I wouldn't say lie, but let's cut out the sort of the show of us doing a talk when we're here to network. And the intelligence is you can do this brilliantly online. So, and I think what will help online as well is I think it would improve the quality of the meetings. And I think LinkedIn has been a great way, and the pandemic has been a great way to really, I suppose, cut a lot of the rubbish out of the ecosystem in terms of conferences, and also allow people greater intelligence as to how good the quality of the meeting will be. So I think they're complementary, and I feel like I don't think they're going to be an antagonistic. I think both can really help if you combine them together.
No, and I think also, there are other considerations that the companies have to look at. For example, the green consideration.
Yeah.
Your carbon footprint of, hundreds or thousands of people flying all over the world. I mean, that is certainly something that companies is so much more important and much more cognizant of, and that will come into those decisions as well. So there's a whole mishmash of things there.
Yeah. And I suppose the final sort of point around this is when you think about this world where it's hybrid and you have obviously a return to some events will come back, the industry leading events will come back, and other conferences, there's still going to be this kind of LinkedIn kind of framework people are still so terrified of. And one of the big things I think people are really scared, generally nervous and scared of, is content creation and distribution, as to your point. What advice would you have to someone who is, perhaps looking at the next 18 months themselves and thinking, I need to go on LinkedIn, but it's easy to say go on it. I don't know what to talk about. What advice would you give to them to help them become creative on LinkedIn?
Yeah, and I completely understand where they're coming from, because actually it is very exposing. You are suddenly putting yourself out to the world, and everyone can see what you're doing. So of course there's going to be some fear and trepidation, and that's only natural. But I would say, look at what other people are doing. Maybe talk to colleagues. There's lots of help out there as well. There are lots of firms out there, like yourselves, there's other firms out there, but do some research and particularly if we're talking about the distribution, because obviously the actual sort of database using LinkedIn for that's very anonymous. And that research, but actually putting content out, which is a lot more threatening, if you like, is dip your toe in the water. Do something you're comfortable with. Do something small. Don't try and produce a webinar the first time round. But do something, dip your toe in the water and see how that goes. And talk to colleagues maybe that are using it more. Talk to agencies as well that can help you and that understand it, and then and take it from there. I think it's relatively straightforward, but you have to start somewhere, but take it slowly.
Yeah, and I think that's a wonderful way to wrap up the interview. Thank you so much, Paul, for taking the time out of your day to talk to us today. And I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of your LinkedIn journey evolve.
Thank you, James. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Cheers.